Welcome to Burning Questions. My name's Alec. I'm the technical manager of Quelfire. This is part two of our really engaging conversation with Joe Hart from Delta Fire Engineering. Joe, we're going to jump straight back into it. What impact has the BSA had on your daily work?
One of the big changes of the Building Safety Act and just everything post-Grenfell is a sharpening of focus on fire. People do care more about fire now. They're asking us to do more and more, which is positive for us in the industry, and positive, I believe, for building safety. Since the Act came in, there has been a huge amount of confusion, I would say. Everybody is living that together across disciplines, in fire and beyond as well. Even, I mean, I mentioned it earlier again, but yesterday I got a response from the building safety regulator to a submission we'd put in, and I was gobsmacked by it. I was like, that's different to something I put in 3 weeks ago. So that's changing. The rules are constantly changing. So it has changed my day-to-day work and our day-to-day work significantly, because it's a new regime, it's a new kind of way of working, so we're all having to work that out. I'm really pleased to be able to input into that a little bit. I think that if you submit really good quality work to the BSR and they see that and identify it, they'll start to ask for it moving forward. And I've been fortunate enough to have that feedback from them, and that's fantastic. That at Gateway 2 especially, which is where we sit at the minute with lots of our projects, they're saying, oh, we like that, do that more. And that's so helpful for me to hear. Because if I submit something and 6 months later they come back and reject it, which is what is happening to a lot of schemes, I also need to know, well, why is it rejected? The numbers that came out recently was 67% of applications were rejected because the information was wrong. That either means everybody in the world's doing it wrong, or we don't know what we're doing because we don't know what you're looking for. So there's been a lot of confusion for us day to day. And I work with clients, and I find myself having to apologize to clients a lot by saying, hey, this isn't an us thing and a me thing. Everyone I speak to in the world is struggling through this and not knowing what's going on. But again, for the positive spin, I have to shove on as well. Buildings are getting safer, I believe, because I think that it's getting stricter and there's more focus on fire. Clients and contractors especially are putting more focus on fire and engaging consultants, which is a positive shift that we've got. So I've certainly got busier since the Building Safety Act came in. I've changed my business model quite significantly. So I now have teams within Delta where we've got designers, but we also internally have people who will go out during construction. We call it our implementation team, who pick up the strategy at the end of stage 4. We novate it internally to our own team and say, okay, we'll pass it to our internal construction team, who go to site and sign off, and they check product details and they check it's been done correctly to support us through the gateway. So it's definitely, I mean, it fundamentally has changed my daily work. And I think those of everyone in all my contemporaries as well.
Yeah, no, it's the same. It's actually, especially for myself, very good to hear that, because we've been quite lucky to be part of a lot of Gateway 2 submissions. Obviously not on the same level, but we've helped and we've had some feedback, and we've seen the bits, like you said, we like that, keep doing that. And I think, that I'm glad hopefully there's going to be a bit more communication, because I think both sides need to work out what each side wants and stuff like that. But it's been good to see. And I like, again, you've sort of highlighted there that you and your team sort of, it's best when you're the whole lifetime of the project, from the start to the finish, because it needs integrating. Because it'll be interesting to see what happens at Gateway 3. That's the next hurdle that's going to come along at some point. But one of the things I thought that's been a really good change, something we've really worked on, is something to help. I mean, building regulation 38 was always been there, sort of the documentation side of things. And a slight tangent, but I know it's going to lead on something I really want to ask you in a minute, is we're now seeing quite clear paperwork that even when you're going to be on site, or someone, if you're just joining the project, we're seeing it in a way so that this builder's work hole, for example, is, it should be this size, it should be this wall, it should be this fire rating, it's this acoustic rating, it's got these services, it's this, and it's all the information's there. So if someone goes back in 10 years time or 20 years time and they want to do something, they can go and look at that information. So I've seen a big shift towards there being available. And the reason why I wanted to ask that is, one of the other things that came out of the Building Safety Act was obviously the legacy buildings now could be, I think it was like 30 years for the older buildings, 15 for new builds. So when you're doing sort of risk surveys and stuff like that, how has it been when you're dealing with the more modern stuff rather than the historic and the older?
Yeah. There's a point in there that I'll leap on as well, which might answer you. I don't know if it's relevant to
you.
No, it's an interesting point, because with like regulation 38 and stuff, and people say to me all the time, and if I speak to clients, I very often clarify this, that they say all this new stuff that's happening, and I go, well, we've been doing it. This isn't new. We don't suddenly care about safety. We've always cared about safety. It's just now there's procedurally different ways of presenting it. So people go, well, we never had to do any of this. You go, He did. Your job's to build a building. Like, you've always had to do that safely. That's not new. It's just now you have to demonstrate in different ways. The golden thread requires you to demonstrate it and keep records and all that kind of stuff. But nobody, like, I haven't changed what I do pre and post Building Safety Act. I just put it on a different form now. I didn't suddenly go, do you know what, I need to get better at this. Like, I've been designing buildings exactly the same way. And most people in fire engineering that I know certainly think the same. There's nothing new. It's just a bit of focus, and we present it differently now. The difference between new and existing, I'm going to go even further back and go heritage, because my absolute passion is heritage buildings. I love working on them. I've got a load of like single-story primary schools at the minute, and they're great, and we knock out 10 a month, and that's fantastic. But honestly, put me in an old church that's like got the really weird, intricate bits that will never meet guidance. We have recently just finished actually a 900-year-old hospital in the centre of London, right around the back of St Paul's Cathedral. It is one of the oldest buildings in the city of London, and there was a door in there that, I don't know how old it was, hundreds of years. And somebody had come along and said, whip it out and put a new door in, it's got a fire certificate. And I said to the client, please don't put that door in a skip. It's the most beautiful door I've ever seen in my life. And I'm not a big fan of doors, but that thing is stunning. And it was like 6 inches thick, solid oak. It had been there for hundreds of years. And somebody had come along and said, because it doesn't have a fire certificate, it's got to go. And I was like, it's not happening at all. Never take that door off, right? So the problem with existing and heritage buildings is you have to be a bit more pragmatic. You have to think slightly beyond what we would do for a new build. It is a different discipline to design an existing versus a new build. I've been working over the last couple of years on some projects where people are taking existing buildings and extending them upwards, airspace projects. You buy a building and you add a couple of stories, and it adds some more flats to the area, to, let's say, London. But one issue that I see in that particular sector is they don't give enough consideration to the existing building. So very often the flats below are getting damp ingress and all that kind of issue because they don't care so much about it. And what I say to the people that do those types of projects is, it's not a new and an existing part of the building. You are creating a holistic building, and that's how you have to look at it.
Yeah.
Same with a heritage building. I mean, the Tower of London's 1,000 years old, but it looks very different now to what it did 1,000 years ago. You have to look at the building as it stands. One of the biggest shifts I think fire engineering has had to make in recent years is fire engineers are not desk-based anymore. And when I started my career, I spent my first 5 years chained to a desk, and I never saw a real building. I didn't go to a building site. I didn't go and look and do an inspection. But now we are very much going out and looking at existing installations. My team spend up to half their time on sites. Right now, I mean, I don't know where everyone is right now, to be honest. I don't know what day it is. But this week, some of my team, I've got a couple of the guys are at a psychiatric hospital working.
I was going to say, working.
So they're doing some surveys of a heritage building. I've got some guys that are in the Shard doing some surveys there. I've got one of my guys is going up to Inverness tomorrow to go and look at an office. The fire engineers nowadays are going out and looking at buildings, and where you've got existing, you can't just look at a building plan and say that's what is in the building. The building plan will say that's what we intended to build, but you've got to go out and look at it now and see what situation it's in now. Really, really important.
Yeah, no, again, ties in quite nice. We said before about it's a blend of the practical and the theory. To, yeah, even like I said, even I struggle if I'm just in my office. You need to sort of see the real world out there. And the heritage building side of things is actually quite interesting. I've seen quite a lot of things. So again, off a tangent, I didn't talk about cathedrals. I think it was Zurich who did a CPD for the IFE where they talked about insurances, and I didn't know that they only typically insure one roof of a cathedral or something, and it's the spire that has to be really protected, because if it spreads onto multiple roofs, the other roofs aren't covered on insurance and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I think because of the Notre Dame stuff like that is quite, because that's another aspect I obviously we'll talk about that in another burning questions, but there is a hidden world of, and I know a main contractor does that with clients now, says you can build the building this way, but your insurance is going to be this.
Yeah.
But you can build the building this way, which is a lot more, both technically safe and meet the guideline, but this one's more safe and your insurance comes down. So it's the bigger picture of things.
I'll tell you something I've had to become an expert in, because I run a business. So I'm head of fire engineering, but I'm the chief executive of the group. So one thing that I have had to become an expert in, and I've had to go off and sit courses in, is insurance and legal, because I spend so much of my life looking at contracts. I'll receive a contract 6 months into a project, and they'll retroactively apply it to day one, because if something goes wrong, they want to come after the fire engineer. It has become one huge downside of the Building Safety Act and recent years in the industry is how litigious it's become. Very much a kind of, if it goes wrong and you don't get approval, whose fault is it? you know what, it's the world's fault. It's the
Yeah.
it's procedurally that's just what's happening with the regulator. That's what's happening. But I've had legal claims threatened against me because we've been refused. Our fire strategy hasn't gone through. And I've said that simply isn't how it works. That we've been engaged to a piece of work, we've gone through, and the world has changed. We haven't changed. Our advice is solid and gold. And they've said, well, we haven't got a building, so whose fault is it? So I genuinely have had to go out and sit courses. In actual fact, I went and sat my solicitor's qualifying exam, my SQE, just to protect us as a business, because there is so much contract law that's come through, insurances. I mean, trying to get professional indemnity insurance as a fire engineer. Well, I mean, we went and got a broker, and he's managed to secure, I mean, we've got £10 million PI, which was an absolute, we literally had a party to celebrate when we got our insurance that year. It wasn't, it was literally get the whole team together, we're going to celebrate this, guys, because it was a difficult process. So we've got the kind of, to some fire engineering, we've got the micro stuff, which is day to day. We've got clients coming to us with technical questions, and we're late in projects and all that. But then there's the macro stuff, which is, I turn the news on, there's a fire engineer on the news, and my insurance doubles. There's all of that kind of stuff that's happening alongside as well. So it is a very tricky kind of world to navigate at the minute. I have the experience of doing it on a day-to-day, writing a fire strategy, and also running a business. So I see both sides of it, which is, you know, a difficult role at times.
So you're burning the candle at both ends there.
A little bit.
But no, it's good seeing that. I said I'm appreciative of the fact that I know you've got all that, but you're doing the stuff outside. So obviously, the fire engineer aspect is why I wanted you to come here today. But one of the things I've really been grateful for is how much you've helped me daily, because of the stuff you do outside of Delta, for example. So I just thought it'd be we mentioned CPDs earlier, but I just thought it'd be good to just to talk a bit about your role at the IFE.
So I've been involved with the IFE, the Institute of Fire Engineers, for quite a few years. I've been a member for coming on to a decade probably. I got involved. They asked me when I was, because I do a lot of this. I mean, right now I'm not at work. I'm here for fun, genuinely. No one's paying me to be here. I've took the day off work to come and do this, and this is what I spend a good chunk of my time doing. So I have a podcast, I go into conferences and all that, but I do this because it's fun, right? And that's what I did with the IFE. So they invited me in to give some talks. I did it. I enjoyed it, so I kept doing it. They kept asking me to come back. I kept turning up and talking. So I started running I started the kind of early careers thing with the IFE, where we were doing different events to help early careers and late stage careers as well, with just free webinars. I was running them through the Southern branch for a couple of years. I think every couple of months I was doing a webinar for free. I don't remember. And when I picked it up, we had 15 people turn up, and then one of them we had 400 people turn up, and it was mad. And I was like, okay, I can do something with this. So I ended up picking up the IFE Yorkshire and Humberside branch, where I'm president, and we have this big kind of program. Our committee's fantastic, but we do all these free webinars. We made the decision that it will be free forever, so we'll never charge people for our CPD, and you don't have to be a member of the IFE, because I don't want somebody to say, oh, I'd love to learn that thing because I'm an architect or a mechanical engineer or whatever, but I don't meet the criteria to be a graded member. So I spent a lot of time doing that. The work we do at the IFE is all of the stuff that we try to give out is simply free knowledge, and we don't publish in advance what our program is. But the reason for that is because we don't know what the program is. I'm doing a talk in September for the IFE, but I don't know what it is yet. I'll see what's kicking off in September. And if I have to turn up with no slides and just ad-lib, as much as I'm doing here, I'll turn up and I'll ad-lib for 40 minutes or whatever it is, because we try to keep it current. We don't want to talk, it's never an advertising pitch. I don't go there and say, this is what a fire engineer is and here's my business card. It's not what it's about. It's about just giving knowledge away. And that for me is the mark of really good CPD. It's a lot of CPD that I've attended, and this is not anybody's fault, this is the world. You get 2 slides about something technical, you get 20 slides about the business that's trying to sell it to you. At that point I dial out or walk out of the room, because I don't need that, you know. CPD, true CPD for me is about knowledge sharing. It's not about somebody trying to look the most intelligent person in the room. I mean, this show is perfect because it is simply about getting knowledge out there and people sharing it. So that for me is what CPD should be.
And one of the things I do like, going back to sort of your point, is I've always find that because of the times you tend to do them in the afternoon. In fact, when I used to do my IFE CPDs back in the day, they were after 5 o'clock. Because it's like you said, it's in your own time. You're doing it. Obviously, not everyone's going to say they find it fun, but I do find the topic fun. But you're putting that effort in to do it out of your own time. You want to learn to advance, and obviously now it's about 3 o'clock time. But we're quite passionate of sharing the knowledge and not having it behind a paywall. I think it's been really good. So we always do our free CPD and we focus it on the topic. It doesn't talk about our products and stuff like that. And that's what I've liked about the IFE. And I'm glad you're keeping the topics up to date. And I've learned a lot. Even stuff like I said, here I'm just service penetrations, but I think having a little bit of knowledge outside my bubble has really helped. And it's also been to the point where I've been able to talk to an architect and say, watch this video, speak to this person and stuff like that. So, and I think, and hopefully people watch this and stuff, that you now saying it's not just for the IFE members as such, that you're doing it because I think there's a lot of architects that would learn a lot from you. Because I mean, we talked about this again, going off tangent, that obviously you're as a lecturer in that you've been to some of theirs, and considering how much of an impact they have on fire safety, that they learn very little on their course as such. It's like one day or something. The architects.
I did a lecture for an architecture school, and it was 2 hours, and they said talk about anything you want. So I just told stories for 2 hours. I just thought it doesn't really matter, but I brought some technicals. In fact, the thing I did, I might do here, is about testing, about how a test standard, something that reaches 2 hours in a test standard, that's not 2 hours in a real building. I did that whole thing about the equal area hypothesis, how if that door in the corner of our room there is a 30-minute fire door, it doesn't mean you can stand there for 29 minutes then move. That door might fail in 10 minutes in a real fire. If the fire's great. I did that talk. I've done it a billion times. And I said at the start of the talk to these architecture students, there's about 50 or 60 of them, I said, have you had any fire input at all? They went, no. What year are you in? Well, 4th year. I was like, okay, right. Well, I assume this is the start of a series then. I got to the end of the 2 hours. I said, what else have you got coming up then? Fire. They said, that was it. I was like, this 2 hour ad-libbed waffle from me is all you get as an architect. I feel really like, I feel a responsibility to give more, because actually I'm a associate member of REBA or whatever it is. They have loads of cool CPD that's on there. It's amazing. I joined as a non-practicing architect just to learn more about their discipline, and they give that out to in a way that I can understand. It's not about what buildings look like, it's a technical decision. So I think we have an obligation. I think anyone who's in a position to do things like this has an obligation to do it. So I literally do this for fun.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate, and again, I don't just say that because you're hearing that. I do appreciate, and it's helped me, and it's why I wanted to invite you on the show and that, because I'm the same. I feel I sometimes go maybe to some, they'd say, oh, you're doing too much, but it's like I want to make the industry better. I liked the fact that I can sleep at night and know I've done the best. The industry changes. There may have been stuff we did and said years ago, but we have to learn. So for anyone in the audience, because I'm hoping, obviously we try and share this a lot with architects, MEP designers and stuff like that, people not necessarily at the forefront of the fire safety, but they do have an impact. What sort of good educational things could they look? Obviously the IFE, CPDs. I've learned a lot from what you do outside of this, so I'm hoping to share that with the audience as well, if that's okay.
Yeah. I do a couple of podcasts actually. I do a couple of things. One of them, the one you mentioned there, Not All Fire, is a weird one to plug. It's very hard to market because the name puts everybody off, because fire practitioners think it's not for me because it says Not All Fire, and then practitioners that aren't in fire look at it and go, oh, it's about fire, so I'm not interested. So it's a very tough plug, but that's a weekly show that I do with my colleague Jude, as you mentioned. Every week we go through some fires that have been in the news, because every week there's been a couple of fires. We sort of analyse them. We do a bit of legislation change, and we do something technical. There's always questions. And I'll tell you what, we started that we recorded last night, episode 67 or 68 or something. So we're that many weeks in, a little over a year, about 14 months or something. That thing's huge. I had no idea. We started putting it, we stuck it on Spotify. It was just me and Jude, Teams call once a week. We were having the chat anyway, might as well record it, stick it out. The show's huge. I can't believe it. I'm a big advocate of podcasts, though. Generally, not just my own, I promise. But I love podcasts because so many of us travel in fire. As I say, I spend my life going off to construction sites and stuff. I've got 11.5-hour flight next week. So many people in our industry travel, and a podcast's a great way of doing it. And a podcast for me should be this. It's just a chat back and forth, because you can listen to that and you're part of the conversation. So I love a podcast for that reason. There are loads of good technical ones. I'd encourage people to study beyond your own discipline. I'm a massive advocate for that. The more I've learned about structural engineering, I do a show with Sean Hanlon about structural engineering as well. We've got a thing coming up in September. The more I've learned about structural engineering, the better fire engineer I've become. The more I've learned about fire stopping, the better designer I've become. Like, you have to look beyond your own discipline, and that's a big one for me. So any show or any institution or company or CPD provider that's putting out stuff about their specialism, if it's not directly related to you, but it's ancillary, it's still of benefit. So I'd get people to do it.
Yeah, I've done the same. Like, I've learned stuff on gas regs, electrical regs, because they impact how we actually design some of our testing, because what we do impacts the day-to-day and stuff like that. So prime example with gas pipes, I think it's regulation 209, it's got to be sleeved. We've had to incorporate that into the fire stopping, because some of the people have just gone out there and fire stop the gas pipe, not realizing there's going to be a sleeve out there. And it's something simple like that changes, and it actually has sometimes quite a detrimental effect on the fire performance and stuff, but same with electrical. So yeah, no, I really agree with that discipline in that. So obviously the IFE, they can just go on the website and find everything for that as well. And I just really want to thank you for, I know you're busy, and I know obviously you got your flight and stuff like that, so I really thank you for joining us on the show. And I'm sure obviously if you are free, we might try and get you back in the future and that, but if not, I hope everyone out there, please check out Joe's stuff, everything on the IFE, Delta, his podcast, especially, anything you need, any questions, please send it through and I can try and pass them on and everything. But thank you very much. And for the audience, that's the end, brings us to the end of the episode. As always, if you need have any questions, please email in to the contact details that appear on the screen. And thank you very much.